Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We're now on part 5 of 6. I feel like such a good thing is coming to an end. I don't know how everybody else feels, but kind of weird, right? So, part 5 of 6. Thanks for joining us today. Today's expert is Gonzalo. My name is Heather. I'll be your host. I'm going to kick it off, just kind of share a little bit about Ellipse Solutions, and then we'll kick it over to Gonzalo, and he'll share what you're really here about, which is learning about advanced D365 mobile workspaces. So we'll geek out on that in just a couple of minutes. So you guys have been on this journey with us with a Digital Academy for some time. Most of you are very aware of our company history, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page, because you just never know, you know the size of our company, 70 people. We just recently grew. We are actually hiring 2 new roles. They just got posted today. So go check those out on LinkedIn if you're interested in joining our team. So soon that number will grow by more. Most of our team members are certified experts. And what that means to you is you're always getting the A team. So Gonzalo, you can go to the next one. And as you can see, we all stick around. Once they hire us, they can't get rid of us. So our tenure is pretty strong. All right, so our time in this space. So while we have been consulting for some time, we started specializing in Exapta a long time ago, and then that grew into the full Dynamics 365 product that you know today. And yes, we do have 2 people that we could not come to terms with in our history of being in business. All right, so the thing I want to share with you today. So last week, as a part of the upgrade program, we shared the discovery, the free discovery that you can sign up and do. So this week, we are explaining how autopilot kind of builds on to that. So if you're interested in doing the discovery, what that really is going to do is set you up for success for the upgrade and the migration. And we went through that, all of the processes, how you'll bring in your ISV solutions, how your time frame, all of those things. And then what that does is set you up for what's called autopilot. We'll put the link in the chat when Gonzalo gets started. And what autopilot does is, as you know, once you get on D365, the whole joy of that is that you never do an upgrade again. The complexity of that is that you get continuous updates. And those things do have, well, I already said it, complexities to it. And if you want to safeguard yourself against those or just really not have to deal with it, then we have a program for that, and it has a fixed cost. So you know how to approach that as far as budgeting. It helps with your resourcing. And it really just kind of starts following up on all those things that we would have done through the discovery with setting up BPMs and RSAT and all of those things properly. So just kind of flows together. It's really nice timing, really nice offering, and I want you to just check it out. So we'll put that link out there for you. All right, so Gonzalo, I'll turn it over to you, reminding everybody, post your questions. We'll get to them at the end, make sure Gonzalo gets everything answered, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Gonzalo Garcia. I am a software solutions architect at Ellipse Solutions. I have been working at Ellipse for, I think it's going to be 11 years now. Actually, no, 10 years in September. So it's been a long time. And as Heather mentioned, today we're going to be focusing on discussing the mobile workspaces in D365. So like I said, today we'll be covering 2 main advanced topics for mobile workspaces. And but before that, we will briefly revisit the basic components of a mobile workspace in case you're not familiar with, and just to provide some context as to what we're going to be looking for, and like a refresher. And the advanced topics are going to be mainly focusing on client-side development and server-side development. All right, let's go and take a quick recap of the 5 main components of a mobile workspace. As you probably know, it all starts with the creation of a mobile workspace. This is done through the mobile app option under the D365 Finance and Operations options button, which is the little cog button on the top right area of the web page, of the main web page of the platform. And once you add a workspace, you can start adding pages. The first one to be added, at least preferably, should be the ones that are mapped to list pages on the platform, as this is the most sensible approach. And the idea is that you get first on the main page, or your initial page that the user interacts with, is a page that will show you a list of entities, say sales orders, production orders, etc. Then to your application or to your mobile workspace, you will add a detail page that will allow you to do a drill down from the list page into a specific record. You would then add action to the pages, either on the detail screen or the list page. And each action will have tasks that you will have to complete to fulfill the purpose of said action. And this is basically the basic structure of a mobile workspace. As always, when designing your mobile workspace, you need to keep in mind that what is really happening behind the scenes is that every single page you create, every single action that you add to the page and that the user is going to take, it's in reality kind of sort of like a wrapper for a task recorder. When you are adding fields to your page or an action to your page, you are in reality doing mappings to the actual controls / fields and buttons and actions on the actual full-blown form in D365. These screens on the mobile app are kind of like masks that provide a layer of abstraction to the actual components of the platform. And the same applies for actions. Actually, if when you're done configuring an action, after you're done setting up an action, if you go to the settings or the configuration settings for the action, you can actually see the steps that you took to complete said action. And these are basically steps or tasks that are related to task recorder. And these are the tasks that the user will have to complete in order to fulfill the completion of the action. So let's quickly jump to a demonstration. And the reason why we're going to do this the other way around, meaning doing the demo first and then the theory, is that I thought it would be better for you to see the finished product, and then we will dissect it side by side with the code to understand what actually makes it work. We will be covering advanced concepts in this presentation, but I have done my best to keep this app simple enough so it will be possible to easily dissect and digest what is actually happening. So let's, with that said, let's take a quick look at what we are looking at. So in here we have the actual client. Let me just close this. Let's quickly jump to the actual setup of the application. We're going to start a new session and we're going to refresh this one. So like I said, the mobile app, you start by creating a mobile workspace. In this case, I added 2 of them. One to showcase everything related to the server-side development, and one related to the actual client-side development. So if you open this workspace, okay, let's select it and let's hit edit. you will see that I have a few pages. One that it's actually the orders list, one that it's production order detail, and then a page that will actually allow me to do the lookup of items. So in reality, this is a very simple page. It has some fields mapped to the grid of the list of production orders, and it has one action called new order. In this new order action, if you go and take a look at the job steps, you will see that it is just guiding the user through task recorder to do click new production order, enter an item number in the field, and the item number field, pick a quantity on the quantity field, and then hit create. And in general, it just has two inputs, or just needs two inputs for the creation of a new order. And on the production order detail side, we have a more elaborate screen, because it will show you quite a great deal of detail about the production order. And it will also show you a grid with the list of materials from the bill of materials. If you go to the actions, you'll see that I have added 3 actions, one for estimate the order, one for start the order, and one for release the order. So all in all, in general, this is a very simple application. So let's take a look at the application itself. I'm projecting here a screen of a phone I have in my hands. So I have two, when you open the client and you log into the mobile workspaces, or the finance and operations mobile application for mobile workspaces, you will be presented with the list of workspaces that you have available in your environment. So I'm gonna pick this one. And as you can see in this screen, this is the screen that will show me the list of pages that I have available. So the page that I have available right now is the production orders list. Give me 1 second. So when you select the list of orders, the first list of orders is just retrieving information from the system and showing me the actual list of production orders. In here, for each of the individual items, I'm showing the production order number, its status, the item number that is being produced, how much or how many of them, and the date where it's supposed to be started. And if you pick an actual production order, you will go to the details page. Also, you can see here at the bottom that I have placed the new order action. So if you click the new order, you will be taken to the new order action, which it is requesting you to enter item number and quantity. At the bottom, you have the done button. So once you enter an item number and you pick a quantity, you hit done and it creates a new production order. If you pick a production order from the list, you will be taken to the details page, and the details page has been rearranged. I'm going to pick another order here, this one. In here, I have rearranged this screen to show the actions up top, and then you know, the detail of the order, item number, its status, the BOM number, route number, as well as site and warehouse. And at the bottom, I have placed a scrollable section that will show you the list of materials that you're going to be consuming to produce the order, right? So this is the application itself. If you have ever seen the actual structure of a mobile workspace without any design applied to it, you will realize that it's a very bland design and it's not as you know, detailed as this one. Everything is very linear. So what we will be covering in this is how we can apply styling to the entire page. So you can rearrange that bland design that comes pre-built with the mobile workspace and, you know, do something more useful for the user. So let's go and discuss a little bit how that is done. There we go. Let's do this. All right, so let's jump to client-side development. We will see this code. We will analyze the code side by side. Let's just go first through a little bit of theory. So, how do you start applying client-side logic to the application? It all starts with a JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file, you will need to add a single function called main. This function is the entry point for all the client-side logic execution, and this function is actually called when by the subsystem to initialize the workspace actions and functions based on a series of parameters that you can apply through function references. And once the execution of the main function finishes, it should return an object containing the references to these functions that the system will call then eventually to apply styling and additional logic. What is the structure of the main function? This is how it looks on its most basic level. It has a signature that when you define that it's a function, its name is main, and you receive 4 parameters. The most important ones are metadata service, which is it's the most used type. This is the object that allows you to add controls and add or modify actions, and also configure the look and feel, and in general configure the workspace. The second parameter is data service. This type allows you to get access to the underlying data entity that is bound to the page you're looking at. The third one is cache service, which can be used to save data and access this data across pages, basically sort of like a cache. In here, in this function, you will add 3 functions, as I had mentioned before, and you will return them in the object at the bottom at the end of the execution of this function. And the idea is that this object that you're returning contains the references to these functions under the names of app init, page init, and task init. Also, as mentioned before, the metadata service is the one that it's the most used, and we'll see it in a bit. And we will use it to provide styling to the application, as well as modifying some actions. Okay, let's take a look at the styling itself. All right, so in here we have the application on the left running, and on the right we have the code that is used. Action design helper. Okay, one second. As you can see, this is the workspace. Sorry, this is the workspace initialization function. Yeah. So helper functions. I'm missing action. Yes. So the entire file is the main function, as I mentioned before, and in here I am using the workspace. I'm declaring or creating the three functions that I mentioned: workspace initialization, page initialization, and action initialization. And I'm returning them at the end. So for workspace initialization, I am doing a few things. So if I am initializing, first of all, I'm hiding the all items page because I don't need that. I'm just using it as a lookup. Second, I am configuring the lookup that I mentioned before by passing some fields, some parameters to the item field on the create page, and the create order page related to that create action. Then I am adding the design to the workspace in general. And then the next step will be adding the design to the production orders list page. As a third step, I am adding the design to the production order detail page. And this is where we're going to focus, because this instruction is what makes this screen looks the way it does. The metadata service, the configure, and then one of the last steps of the workspace initialization is I am actually configuring the new order action to do additional validations. So let's focus on this particular line of code, which is related to applying the design to the production or details page. So in here, I am using the metadata service object that I'm receiving as a parameter, and I'm calling a method called configure page. The configure page method will take two things. First, it will take the name of the production order detail page. If we take a look at this object here, or this type, you will realize that it's a simple string that has the name of the actual page, and this name is coming directly from the workspace in finance and operations. The second thing it takes is a handler. In this case, it's a handler. That's the way I structured it. But in general, you can see this as a collection in JavaScript. If we go and take a look at this function, which is the function that it's providing us with the design of it, you will see that it's a simple function that will return, again, a container. And in here, you will see that what I'm doing is using this sort of JavaScript syntax that resembles somehow cascading a style sheet. The way you describe the styling for the mobile workspaces is through it's relies on the philosophy of the flex containers in cascading style sheet. So what Microsoft did is just take concepts from flex container in CSS, and it applies it here, meaning that everything on the screen can be seen as a grid. And in the grid, you will have rows and columns. So what I'm doing here is defining a column, like the main column of the entire page, and I am disabling its scrolling. So if you look at this, this is the entire column of it. Everything that you see on the screen is contained within this column, and it's not scrollable. The only thing that it's scrollable is this little guy here. It looks like it's scrolling, but it's actually doing the refresh. I'm not gonna be pulling all the way down. Then inside this column, I'm defining another column which is setting its background as dark. So you immediately see that this column is not forced, but it is going to be this particular section in here. Inside that main, that column, which represents the up top section, the top part of the page, I am defining in it another column, and this is probably redundant. But again, a container within a container that has nothing, it doesn't it doesn't add anything extra to the screen. It's just overhead, design overhead. But the important part here is that inside this column, I am adding a row, and I'm actually adding 3 rows. The first row is going to be showing a control coming from the mobile workspace called identification product ID. So with this gives you an idea of what is actually showing you on the screen. And in this case is the actual production order number. And here I'm just stating that it's going to be bold, it's going to be large, the font size. Next, on the next row, we have the identification name. So this is the actual row I'm showing here, and it's actually the name of the product I'm producing. And the third row is it's actually it shows you the action buttons, but in general, it is a simple row. It has no other element other than a list of items, and the list of items is basically a list of buttons. In here, I'm defining that each one of these buttons is of type navigation because it has to do something. I'm defining different labels for each one of them, and this label actually overrides the labels coming, whatever label that may be coming from F&O. I'm defining that its style is a button, and for each one of them, I am explicitly stating which icon to use. And I'm just giving a different kind of color to each one of them. So the first one is blue. Oh, I'm sorry. The first one is blue. The estimate is blue. The release is neutral. That's the name of the color. And the start is light green. The most important thing here to note is the target property. And the target property is what it's going to tell the system which action this button will trigger. So if you remember, we had 3 different actions in the mobile workspace. The first one was estimate, the second was release, and the third one was called start one. Start one is just because I created one. Originally, when I was doing this mobile workspace, I created an start action, and then I deleted it, and then added a second one. So the system just keeps track, and it's out of numbers. The actions, that's why you see this here. But in general, it doesn't mean anything other than its unique number. Then we have another column that contains 3 rows, and if you look at how it is defined, you will immediately see that I'm referring, based on the color, I'm referring to this middle section. And again, the same pattern applies. You create a column, and then within the column, you create rows. The first row is showing the item ID number, and I'm adding a label here, item number. The second row is the production order status. And the third row has, actually it's 4 rows. The third row has 2 items side by side. One is for the BOM number and the other one is for the route number. The fourth column is, again, it's the same kind of same as the one before, only that this one has 2 items side by side that show the site and the warehouse for the production order. And then at last, we have another column. It's a big section. This one, if you notice, I am decidedly saying that this one will allow scrolling. The items contained in this entire column is one, actually just one, called grid. So when the system finds that it needs to show a grid, or that you are basically adding a grid to it, um, you will it will be expecting from you a in a specific design within the design. And in this case, this design is defined here. It's going to be linked to the grid. And what it does, it basically applies this design object or this design settings to each one of the different items that are going to be shown on the grid itself. So then you need to think a little bit recursively. You were defining the design for the entire page, and then suddenly you're presented with a grid. You need to specifically define the design for each one of the items that will be shown here. And you can, the same kind of concepts apply. So you're going to have a column, and inside the column you're going to have multiple. And in this case, I have just 2 rows for each one of these things. One that shows the item number and the name of the item. And the second row, it has 3 items, which are basically the quantity, the unit of measure, and then the per series. Now, in here, I made a mistake when I was creating this. The third item, it should have been the per series quantity, but I just repeated unit ID. That's one of the drawbacks of doing copy paste when you're writing code. So in here, you should have seen the actual per series quantity. So if we scroll back a little bit to the body of the main function, you will see that one of the things I did here was to configure an action, and you attach logic to actions the same way you attach this styling to different parts of the page. So in this case, I am using the configure action method of the metadata service. I am passing in a specific name of the action I need to attach to, in this case, the new order. And the next thing you need to pass to it is which event you're going to be acting on or attaching to. So on the onSubmit event of the new order action, I'm going to be doing something special. So in this case, I'm going to be doing a validate entry. I'm going to be running a specific JavaScript logic to validate an entry or validate the entity before it's submitted. So if we go to this method, you will see that it's very simple. In here, I'm just stating if the entity I'm dealing with is prod table, and and if the action I'm handling right now is new order, then I'm gonna be validating quantity. And if I am validating the quantity, what it's gonna be doing is basically getting from the data wrapper object, I'm gonna get the quantity from the control, which in this case is production control schedule. And if I need to validate the quantity and the quantity is less or equal to 0, I'm going to show a message saying that the quantity must be a positive number. And then I'm going to be canceling the action so that the user has a chance to fix the issue and run again. Let's go back to the presentation really quick. All right. Well, like you saw, styling can be a little bit cumbersome and difficult to understand. But once you get the hang of it, it's actually a breeze. You just need to, like I said, wrap your head around the flex containers. So, and like I said, when after you create your pages and you add your fields and your actions, you're normally just greeted with a default styling that it looks bland. So it is useful, but by no means it's appealing or engaging. So just to do kind of like a recap of this, when you think of styling, you have to be thinking of the CSX Flex container paradigm. When you start arranging controls by columns and rows, that's the main idea behind the Flex containers way of arranging things on a web page. So as you notice, while you are coding entirely in JavaScript, you're arranging the syntax of JavaScript in a very similar way of how you are applying styles through CSS. It's just that it's arranged entirely in JavaScript. Some tips and tricks related to styling. As you saw from the example, it was like 400 lines of code. If you take on this, it might seem like it's actually an impossible task to complete any of this. So as with many things in life, don't bite more than you can chew. So that's my first tip of this. Start small and try each step at a time. I cannot stress how useful is this approach, especially because of the next point we're going to be covering. JavaScript, it's a very useful language. It's very nice, but it has some serious drawbacks. And in the case of the mobile workspaces, is that if you make a mistake in the syntax of your definition or your styling in JavaScript, the application, or when the system processes your code, it's going to fail silently. It's not going to show you anything. It's not going to complain. There is no warning. There is no error message. It just, you make a change and suddenly your app will be displaying the default styling out of nowhere, which you can think of it as a positive thing, because the fact that you made a mistake didn't break the app. But it can also be that you made a mistake so bad that the app will not load. That's why I insist on doing this in incremental steps. That way, it's going to be far easier to identify what you broke in your application. If you put all the code in your client, if you put all your client-side code at once and then you try to run it, you will be actually forced back. And if something fails, you will be forced back to start poking around, all the different bits and pieces you added, and you're gonna end up doing the same thing again, only step by step. So um, do things slowly. Um, so how do you hook up actions like you saw before, and same as how you design, how you incorporate the design into the application? You use the metadata service object to do this kind of interaction. We look at it and we were able to add a specific validation on the client side, attach it to the unsubmit event of the new order action, and it is actually allowing us to put a specific logic in place to do our own validations. I think one thing I forgot to mention in the previous slide is, if you notice the versioning, if you notice the name of the workspaces, you will see that it has a version 1.47. That's the amount of versions I went through when I was creating this exercise, so you can get an idea of what I mean by doing things iteratively and little by little. If you remember the details page of the production order, you will remember that I was able to put some icons on it. So you might have wondered, where am I supposed to get those icons? Microsoft provides a searchable PDF that actually shows all the different icons that are supported by the platform. And you just only need to reference them by name, and the system will render them for you. It's very important to mention that there is a PDF for each version of the system. So there is one for 10.0.13, one for 14, one for 15, and Microsoft keeps adding more and more icons to the platform. And it's important to note that if for some reason you pick an icon from version 15 that it's not present or supported in previous version, the system is not going to show it for you. So let's quickly jump to server-side development. On the server-side development, the story is completely different. It starts with creating a class that inherits from sysapp workspace class, and it is actually decorated with two things. One is the GUID of the application of the mobile workspace that you're creating, and the name of the class you just created. And by using this class that you're inheriting from sysapp workspace, you can do many things, like modifying the metadata of the application, the metadata of the workspace, and you can also do more elaborate things like adding pages and actions by using specific decorations to some supporting classes you will have to create. And we will cover this in a second. So let's think how you modify the metadata of the workspace that you're creating. So this is done by overriding a method called get workspace metadata. Using this method, you can get a hold of the reference of the metadata object before it's processed, and it will allow you to change a few things in your application, like a title and its description. And there is also another method called workspace hidden that will basically allow you to make your application or your entire workspace invisible, depending on custom logic that you might want to set, and actually have a very nice example of this. And just to mention something additional to this is that you can also use specific menu items in the decorations of your class, so that the standard finance and operations security framework applies. So you can restrict access to your workspace based on the standard security settings of the application. So let's go and take a look side by side with this. So I'm going to be opening here. I'm going to be remoting to my environment, which is hosting my application. So as you can see here, I have created a very simple example. I have a class called ELS Production Control Mobile Workspace. As I mentioned before, it is decorated with the GUID of the mobile workspace we were working with, as well as the name of this class. And it extends this application framework. In here, I am just for the sake of doing it, I am retrieving the metadata, or I'm overriding rather the metadata, the get workspace metadata method. I'm calling, the parent method, the parents class method, and I'm just overriding the description of the workspace with some custom label. But this is the most interesting piece of code that I threw here. I am basically overriding the workspace hidden method. And in here, I am finding the production parameters record and checking whether this new flag I added called ELS enable mobile workspace is enabled or not. And based on that, I am saying, based on the value of this new field I added, I am basically hiding or showing the workspace without the need to publish or unpublish it from, from the main option on the mobile workspace. So the rest of the customization or the rest of the extension is just I'm changing the production parameters form to add this new field to hide or show the production workspace. And I am extending the production parameters table to store this little flag, uh, for the user to change. So if we go and take a look at the list of production of mobile workspace, I have two. Pay attention on the one up top, which is the one that it's being controlled by this logic. So right now it is showing just like nothing has happened. And here I'm going to go through the production parameters screen, and you will see that there's a new field called enable mobile workspaces, right? So I'm gonna be saying nope, I don't want to enable mobile workspace. I'm gonna save the parameter. And after I save this setting, I'm gonna go back to the workspace list. I'm gonna refresh, and now it's gone. And when I'm refreshing this screen on the mobile client, what happens is the system is coming and it's executing this specific method, and it's finding the record for the parameters. This field contains a value of no or false. So I am negating that value, meaning that yes, the workspace is hidden. That's the value that this method returns, and thus hides the workspace. And again, all of this is done through a customization that basically allows the administrator of the production order module to show or hide the workspace through server-side code um, without the need of an administrator, publishing or unpublishing the workspace. So conversely, if I enable the workspace and I hit save, and then I come back to my mobile client, and if I refresh it, it's going to show again. Now, let's go back to let's go back to let's go and take a look at this example on the server-side development, but this mobile workspace called Production Control Server 1.7. In here, you will be basically this mobile workspace is similar to the one that was shown for the client-side development example, but everything you see here, it was not created through the point-and-click option in finance and operations. All you see here was written through X++ code in Visual Studio in the environment. Again, it has a single page that shows all production orders. If you click it, it's going to show all the production orders. In here, it takes a little bit longer to load because, again, what it's driving this behind the scenes is actually code that is running. And again, it has a list of a page list that shows the list of orders, and it has a new action, a new order action, and that's the extent of it. It's much more simple because, again, it is a little bit more elaborate how you create this. But you will notice that it has, again, a details page, sorry, a list page, a new action, and that's the end of it. So how does this map to actual code, or how is this driven by code? So let's take a look at the other example I have here for you. Again, I have it all starts with a class, a custom class extending sysapp workspace. And again, this class needs to be linked to the workspace through the GUID of the workspace. And here, again, I'm retrieving the workspace metadata object or overriding its behavior, and I'm just adding a few extra things on my own. And if you look at here, you will notice two things. First is a method called order list that is decorated with the sysapp page attribute. And the sysapp page attribute takes, two parameters, the name and the description of the page. And also it has another method called create production order, which is decorated with the sysapp action attribute. And in here, what I'm doing is the decoration for this method takes in the name of the action, a description of the action, what type of action you're going to be executing, and then the method, or a reference to the method that represents the page to which this action is going to be added. So if you notice, the method reference for this action is the name of the method that has been decorated as the all production as a production orders list page. So you immediately see that the system will take any method decorated, or it will take the methods, and then depending on its decoration, is going to be doing something with it. In the case of this method, it's going to be transforming it into a page, and in the case of this method, it's going to be transforming it into an action. Now, there is something there is something you need to provide back to the system so it can do its job properly. So the orders list, it's going to be returning a list of things, and that list is constructed in this specific method here. So if we drill down into here, you will see that I'm constructing a list in here, and that list is constructed in a very specific manner. So what is that manner? I am iterating over all the production order records in the system. I am ordering them in a particular fashion. In this case, is descending by production order ID. So the newest one comes up top. And I am saying that only production orders that are completed, only production orders that are not completed should be displayed. With this little cycle here, I am adding each of those production orders into the list. And then at the end, I'm returning that list. So when the system receives the list and then it notices that this method is supposed to be mapped to a page, it constructs that and it shows an actual list of orders. So if you notice here, it's showing you one production order first, and then it takes a while to load because it's actually running the code behind to populate this. And right now, it's not doing it for a reason. There you go. So all these orders have been processed by this specific logic. So going back to the action itself. So how do you, what do you need to, what do you need to write in order for an action to take place? So, well, after you have created the method that has been decorated to be an action, then you need to basically create or, support through code what needs to happen for that action. So when the action button is clicked, and when the system has processed this and has determined that an action is created and it's mapped to this method, then when the user clicks the button to execute the action, then this is executed, and you need to, write code relevant to the creation of an order. So when the new order is created or executed, it's going to be calling this bit of logic. The first thing you need to do is create a response object, and you're going to be validating that response. And this validate, it's just going to be checking whether you're passing a valid item number and a valid number for a quantity for the order. And if the validation passes, then it's going to be running boilerplate code to create a production order. At the end, it inserts the record in the system, and the response should, add a commit to indicate that the building of the record has been successfully completed, and you return this response. The system takes it from there, and the action has finished. Let's go back to the presentation. Like we saw on the example, you create pages using through code by using the decoration, by taking a method within your class that inherits from sysapp workspace, and you basically attach the sysapp page decoration to it. And like I mentioned before, it is required for you to create a series of classes that will represent the list of items of the entity you're trying to show on the screen. And in this particular case, it's very useful for very specific circumstances, but one of the benefits is that you are basically in control of what or of how the page is being built and what information is shown in there. The same way you create pages, you create actions, and as we saw before, you need to create a method that will be the representation in code of the new action you're going to create. You decorate this method with the sysapp action attribute, and you need to make sure to return a properly built sysapp response instance when the action completes or fails. And as with pages, the framework will require from you to create a series of classes that represents the fields and the actions, the action itself, and whatever input that needs to be captured from the user. Some last tips and tricks in general. The framework in overall is great, but the application itself, the client, the mobile client that you install on your phone to interact with the mobile workspaces is not so good. As I mentioned before, versioning is key. I cannot stress this enough. Work iteratively at little things at a time, and every time you add a new thing, you change the version of it you change the version on the title of the mobile workspace, so you can see that that you're getting, when you refresh, you immediately see that you're getting the new version of the mobile workspace, and you're not figuring out, you're not guessing if you got the latest version or not. Um, one thing I noticed is that on the Android application, you may need to refresh twice to load the new workspace when you make a change. Not sure why, but that's how it works. The client-side code is passive-aggressive. It will, if you make a mistake, it will not complain, but everything, it will revert back, hopefully, to the standard styling. Be very patient with this. If you're gonna go this way, to provide mobile options to your users, be very patient when you're building your workspaces. And depending on your on the user's requirement, you might think of other options like Power Platform. Lately, Microsoft has added a bunch of new things to Power Platform, CDS, Power Automate, and there is one particular thing that is very exciting, which are called virtual entities, which will basically allow you to create an entity on finance and operations and declare it as virtual, and then CDS and Power Apps will be able to read and interact with it. So again, depending on what you want to accomplish, Power Platform may be a better option. And in general, this framework has not been updated in a while. If you look for mobile workspaces in the web, you will stumble upon the same documentation from 2017. And this was when I was preparing this presentation, that caught my attention, and I was taken aback. Why is it that Microsoft has not been updating this in a while? So I was able to get a hold of one of the engineers who is working behind this, and he was able to confirm that Microsoft is not investing money into this, and it's preferring, or slowly driving users to the use of Power Platform. And again, this option is there for a reason. It's not being deprecated yet. You can still use it. You just need to be warned that in the future that might not be the case, and Microsoft is gonna go the way of Power Platform. That's all on my end. I can see on GoToWebinar screen that there are some questions and some chat indication. So maybe we can just go and answer those questions.
Sure. So we actually got one question posted that
Okay.
I'm always proud when I can answer it. It's not even for you, Gonzalo.
Oh, okay.
It's well, then there comes in one for you. No, actually, it's for me too. It's about the recording. So the recording from last week and this week you will get after tomorrow's conclusion. So I think maybe last week we did send out those first 3 sessions, and then this week you'll get the second 3 sessions. I think that's how we worked it. But anyway, you'll get them tomorrow. Something I half answered anyway. But yeah, those were the only questions that we have posted, Gonzalo. So sorry to steal your thunder. All of that great wealth of knowledge you shared, you left nothing for them to be curious about. Was that amazing?
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for our last session on upgrades.